Welcome to the Weekly Roar, coming live from the Lion's Den, helping new managers become great leaders and awesome bosses. And now, here's your host, Greg Storch.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome to the Lion's Den. This is the Weekly Roar. Welcome back, everyone. Great to have you here today for the next lesson learned in leadership, another mentoring moment. Today's lesson is all about how everything has to begin with you and why that's especially important for leaders. I'm going to tell you all about that in just a second. But first, I'm Greg Storch. I'm the owner of Lion Enterprise, host of the Weekly Roar, and the founder of a worldwide bartered coaching program called The Helping Hand. I'm a certified professional leadership coach and a certified leadership speaker and trainer. Now, last week, I kicked off my newest leadership series, Mentoring Moments in Leadership, with a lesson I learned years ago, but one that didn't come easy. I shared my previous view that leaders should segregate themselves from everyone else and lead from the top. I spoke about the saying, "It's lonely at the top," and what I came to realize and what I shared with everyone last week was how wrong I was. If you're leading others and you feel lonely at the top, then I hate to break it to you, but you're doing something wrong. If you weren't able to join us last Wednesday for the Weekly Roar, or if you need to catch up, or if you just want to watch that session over again, you can access all of my free video resources on my website at lion-enterprise.com. Click on the Lion's Pride Library menu to find video number 125 for last week. Now, while you're in the Lion's Pride Library, make sure you look around and stay a while. It's a free resource, and it's a great way for you to get more of the roar. All right, everyone, let's jump right into today's topic that I'm calling It All Begins With You. Now, today I want to speak with you about the importance of self-leadership, how you can get better at it, and why you want to. Earlier this year, I was fortunate to be a panel speaker for the Global Self-Leadership Virtual Summit that was featured on LinkedIn. It was a fantastic panel of guests, and we were spread out across 21 days. And one of the biggest takeaways was that there are many perspectives on exactly what self-leadership means to people. During my time in the summit, I spoke about how when it comes to leadership, one of the hardest people we'll ever lead is ourselves. That's a critical piece to the success of good leaders. If you want to be a successful leader and lead others effectively, you're going to have to be able to lead yourself first. You can't take anyone anywhere you haven't been yourself, right? Everything we do as leaders has to be done by us first before we try to help others do the same thing. When it comes to leadership, we can be our own worst enemies. Forget worrying about others. You have to worry about yourself first, because when it comes down to it, you know what? Most people just disqualify themselves, so they don't need anyone else to help them lose. They do just fine on their own. So when I'm talking about self-leadership, a lot of it has to do with just getting out of our own way. If you want to be successful at whatever you're doing, self-leadership is critical, or you'll become your own worst enemy by getting in your own way. You might not even be aware that you're getting in your own way. So why is it that we do that? Well, first of all, we don't tend to see ourselves realistically. We look at others differently than we look at ourselves. If you don't look at yourself realistically, you're not going to uncover your own personal difficulties. I call them flaws. Maybe you call them deficiencies or something else. It really doesn't matter what you call it, but those are the things that you have to conquer if you ever want to be able to lead yourself effectively. The other reason, and probably the biggest offender that gets in the way of leading ourselves, is the fact that we're harder on other people than we are on ourselves. I hate to say it, but we judge. We judge a lot, and we judge others a lot harder than we judge ourselves. We let ourselves off the hook way too easy. You see, we tend to use different criteria when it comes to judging others and judging ourselves. We judge others by their actions. It's a very matter-of-fact way of judging. They either did something or they didn't. They are either this or they're that. Whatever it is, we're ready to just slam the gavel down and form a judgment just based simply on the actions of others. Oh, but when it comes to ourselves, oh no, we don't judge ourselves by our own actions. Ugh, that'd be pretty ugly. Nope. When it comes to ourselves, we form that judgment based on our intentions, not our actions. And this is where we get into trouble with self-leadership. When we judge ourselves by our intentions, even when we do the wrong things, as long as we think we had the right motives, then we go easier on ourselves. And what's worse, we keep on doing it over and over again. The only way to change that behavior is to force a change in ourselves. But until we do that, we'll just keep getting in our own way of effectively leading others and reaching our own success. So today, I want to share some things that are going to help you lead yourself better. Now, why the heck do I want to do that? Because if I know anything about leadership, one thing is certain. We have to be able to lead ourselves before we'll ever be able to lead others. So let's get down to it, shall we? Who's ready to take on the challenge of getting better at leading themselves? All righty then, here we go. Before we can be good leaders, we have to be great followers. So the first thing to focus on is getting better at following. Sounds simple, right? In order to lead, you have to learn to follow. You can't be a know-it-all, and you have to be coachable. Benjamin Franklin said that he who cannot follow cannot lead. Nailed it. Good leaders don't figure out all the shortcuts and try to cheat the system. No, they exercise self-leadership by learning the basics, the fundamentals of leadership, and that includes being a good follower. The reason why this is so important is that it gives leaders an edge. It gives them the perspective of their followers because they've been down the same road. I was what they called a Mustang in the Navy. And what that means was simply that I served in the enlisted ranks before I became a commissioned officer. Because of that status, the sailors I led knew that I had experienced the same things that they were experiencing. I could relate to them and their experiences, so remembering where I came from gave me a leg up as a leader. It was a noticeable difference. I remember walking into my first duty station after being commissioned. Nobody knew my background, and I was put in charge of leading 50 hospital corpsmen. That's a group of enlisted sailors in the medical field. At first, I didn't get any respect. They looked at me like I didn't know what I was doing. They all thought I was a newly commissioned officer who just joined the Navy. But once they found out that I had spent the last 12 years as an enlisted sailor, their entire demeanor changed. because they understood that I knew how to follow, and that's how they allowed me to lead. So, one of the first things that you can start working on to get better at self leadership is to get better at following. All right. Now, the second thing that you can do that's going to help you get better at leading yourself is to develop your self discipline. Let me ask you this. How many of you have had the intention of getting up to exercise in the morning before work, but never do it for one reason or another? Yeah, I'm raising my hand too, because I just sit there and complain about my weight gain and never do it, right? Are you with me? Maybe it's something else. Maybe it's not getting up to exercise. Whatever it is, if you don't make good on the promises you make to yourself, how are you going to make good on the promises you make to others? We have to make good decisions, and we have to be consistent about it. And it isn't just about making the right decision. It's about also refraining from making the wrong one. And in order to do that, you have to have self-discipline. Self-discipline, by definition, is our ability to control our feelings and overcome our weaknesses. It's the ability to pursue what we think is right, despite temptations to abandon it or how we feel about it. Self-discipline is one of the most important and useful skills that we can have. It's essential in every area of our life. And though most people acknowledge its importance, not many take action to strengthen it. Building self-discipline doesn't mean that you have to be hard on yourself or live a limited, restricted lifestyle. It just means that you use common sense. You make priorities and think before you act. It means self-control, which is a sign of inner strength and control of yourself and your reactions. So, it makes total sense that developing your discipline will help you also get better at leading yourself. Now, this third one should come as no surprise to you, but I'd be remiss if I didn't prompt you to focus on practicing patience. Now, none of you should be surprised when I say that nothing worthwhile comes easy. And in order to achieve success, we have to develop our ability to exercise patience. That can be extremely hard in today's world. We have Amazon Prime. They'll deliver that thing you just purchased online straight to your doorstep the next day. And sometimes they'll even deliver it the same day if you order it before a certain time. We have instant coffee and instant oatmeal and tons of fast food restaurants. Yeah, we've lost our ability to have some patience. Patience is our capacity to accept or tolerate delay without getting angry or upset. But having access to whatever we want, whenever we want, has changed us. People today are less patient in their daily lives than they were before the world of cell phones and the internet. But leadership isn't about crossing a finish line first. The whole point is to take others across the finish line with you. I talked about that last week. And because of that premise, we have to learn to slow down. And that requires patience. When we practice our own patience, it helps us to become better leaders because we can deliberately slow down, connect with our followers, ask for help, and keep motivating our teams. We won't be able to do those things if we're so impatient that we run too far ahead of our own people. St. Francis de Sales was the one who told us, have patience with all things, but first of all, with yourself. By practicing patience, we prepare ourselves to be better leaders who can slow down, avoid instant gratification, and take the time needed to take others where they need to go. I could use a lot of help in this area. I mean, for example, sometimes I take my wife into work in the mornings and traffic can be unbearable. It's hard to get out of our city because of all the one-way streets and the traffic circles going on. And lo and behold, every time I do it, I get behind the one person who wants to drive slow, slower than the posted speed limit. They come to a complete stop at a traffic circle. Of course, I'm sitting in the car. What are you doing? Come on, I gotta go. No patience whatsoever. There's a great example of where I need to do some work myself on exercising some patience. Now, this last thing I want to mention is something I've done before, and I'm actually currently doing it right now, and that's to seek accountability. Now, here's the thing. Timing is everything. Let me explain that. A lot of people think about accountability as being willing to explain their actions, but that occurs after the action has already happened. See, effective accountability should happen before the action is ever taken. Before I moved to Italy, I had an accountability partner for an entire year. It was one of our most productive years. And in early March of this year, I reconnected with a childhood friend of mine who's a very successful businesswoman, and we became accountability partners as well. We've met every Thursday since March 5th. Here's a reason why it's important to be accountable to someone other than ourselves. I hate to admit it, but we're all fallible. That's right, we're not perfect, and we tend not to recognize that about ourselves. When we do that, it can be really dangerous. This is an example of what I'm talking about. Military branches all have a newspaper. They're called the Army Times, the Navy Times, the Marine Corps Times. You get the idea. I cannot count how many times I looked at the cover of the Navy Times as I'm standing in line getting ready to check out. And on the front page was a leader being removed for what I'm going to call a failure of ethics. I don't believe they intended for these things to happen, but I do believe that they never believed it could happen to them. You probably have your own examples of something similar. Think about a CEO of a large corporation, a politician, leaders of churches. Here are 2 rules that you can use that will help you avoid such issues. First, never trust yourself. And second, always be accountable to someone other than yourself. Those 2 things can help you lead yourself a lot better. Are you willing to seek and accept advice? If so, then that's a great indicator of accountability. If you seek it early enough before you take actions, you'll decrease the probability of going off track. Most wrong actions happen because someone wasn't held accountable early enough. So there are some things that you can start working on to help you get better at leading yourself. Get better at following, develop your self-discipline, practice patience, and be accountable early and to someone other than yourself. What we do, how we conduct ourselves on a daily basis, how we lead ourselves is a great measurement of our ability to lead others well. While we may be the hardest person we'll ever lead, we're the most important one. Do that well, and you'll be a great leader for others. All right, everyone, that's going to do it for today. But I want to remind you that I'm going to make a post in the Lion's Den specific to today's topic about self-leadership. and it's going to prompt additional discussion. So go check it out and leave a comment when the Weekly Roar wraps up. Let's keep this discussion flowing. I'd love to hear your thoughts and comments. If you want to keep running to the roar, then join me next week as I share another lesson learned in leadership. If you want to find out what that lesson is, then just come on back to the Lion's Den next Wednesday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Thanks everybody for supporting me and watching the Weekly Roar today. I appreciate you so much. Until we meet again next Wednesday, remember, be powerful, but stay poised just like a lion. Bye, everybody.
Thanks for watching the Weekly Roar live event at lionenterprise.com. If you enjoyed this video, please tell others to join us each week here in the Lion's Den. Thanks again, and see you next week.